Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Socks wasn't himself. In fact, he had been off colour for a few days. Usually, he was full of energy, begging to go out, to prance around the garden chasing butterflies and pounce on leaves, batting pens off the table just to annoy me, and causing all sorts of trouble around the house in his lovable, mischievous way. But for the last 2 days, he'd been quiet, too quiet. He had stopped playing, was right off his food, and spent most of his time curled up in a sad little ball. It's always worrying when they change like that. They can't tell you what's wrong, but your mum instincts kick in and you just know. And as much as I wanted to believe it would pass, that he'd perk up after a nap or a bit of tuna, deep down I knew something wasn't right. He was going downhill fast, so I did what any responsible cat mum would do. I booked an emergency appointment with the vet. There was just one problem. The car, our car, was currently halfway to the Peak District with my partner behind the wheel and the radio turned up far too loud. A weekend trip I'd completely forgotten about. That left me with 2 choices. Take a taxi and spend half my monthly food budget getting there, or brave the bus. Now, the bus is not my first choice for any kind of travel, especially not when I'm carrying a wobbly cat in a half-broken plastic box. But I didn't really have a choice. I needed every spare penny for the vet bill I knew was coming. So I got out the cat carrier. It was old, dusty, and definitely a little worse for wear. One of the clips had snapped off last year, and I had been meaning to replace it ever since. Instead, I fixed it up with cable ties. Just like last time. Strong enough to hold a tiger, I told myself. I coaxed Socks into the carrier with a soft voice and some gentle petting. He didn't fight me, which made me feel worse. Normally, he'd have clawed his way out 3 times before giving in. But this time he just looked up at me and slowly stepped inside. And then came the hard part. Getting to the bus stop. Have you ever tried carrying a 5-kilogram cat in a big plastic box with a dodgy handle? It's like walking around with a heavy shopping bag that swings, bumps into your legs and makes sad little meows every time you shift it. I had to hold it out in front of me with both hands just to keep it level. Within minutes, my arms were burning. By the time I reached the end of the road, I looked like I'd finished a workout I hadn't signed up for. Thank goodness for the adrenaline that gave me the energy to get this far. At the bus stop, I tried to look calm and collected, while quietly sweating through my t-shirt. I noticed blood on the back of my hand. I must have scraped my knuckles in my rush to get out of the house. A man with a shopping trolley gave me a sympathetic nod. A teenager with wireless headphones gave me a wide berth. The bus arrived with a loud screech from the brakes, and I climbed aboard, swinging the carrier carefully up the step and mumbling an apology to the driver as I struggled to tap my card and not drop the cat. To my surprise, it wasn't too bad. The bus was half full with the usual mix of quiet pensioners, loud school kids, and a few passengers staring into the distance like they were in a music video. No one seemed to mind the cat. Socks, however, was not impressed. Every time the engine growled or the bus turned a corner, he let out a low, grumbling sound, like an old man complaining about the weather. I found a seat near the middle and sat awkwardly with the carrier on my lap, whispering soft words through the plastic. "It's okay, Socks. Not long now. You're being so brave. Something strange happens when you travel with an animal. Or when you're heavily pregnant, come to think of it. Strangers are nicer. It's like the sight of a cat in a carrier triggers something in people. A sort of softening. I got little smiles from other passengers. One woman gave up her seat without a word. A man offered to hold Socks for me while I sat down. When it came time to get off, the bus made its usual lurch forward. Then after a while, the display above the driver flashed up my stop. I pressed the button, stood up with great effort, and carefully made my way to the door, carrier in hand. I turned back and gave the driver a smile. "Thanks for the ride." He raised his eyebrows, surprised, then smiled back. "Hope the cat's all right, love." And that was that. I walked the last few steps to the vet, arms aching, slightly breathless, but somehow still smiling. I navigated the busy street with skill, avoiding the skipping child, the excited poodle, and the angry man furiously running towards the traffic warden who was placing a ticket on a car window. Socks gave a soft meow in recognition of my efforts. Or maybe he just wanted out of the carrier. Either way, we made it. The vet's clinic came into view like a lighthouse at the end of a very bumpy sea. My arms were dead, my back ached, and Socks had been giving me his best, deeply unimpressed expression for the last 15 minutes. But we made it. I stepped through the sliding doors into the small, bright waiting area and was instantly greeted by chaos. 2 enormous dogs were there before us. Not just big, but excited. Tails wagging like helicopter blades, noses twitching, claws scrabbling across the tiled floor as they tried to get closer to their new favourite thing, the small anxious cat in a plastic box. Socks, to his credit, responded the only way he knew how. He puffed up, all of him. He doubled in size in under 3 seconds, transforming from a sleepy, sickly little house cat into something closer to a hairy balloon with legs. His fur stood out at every angle. His tail went full bottle brush. It was a puffer fish impression, and honestly, impressive. The dogs froze. One gave a polite little sneeze and backed off. Even their owners laughed nervously and pulled them away. "Sorry," said the woman with the Great Dane. "He just loves cats." "Mine doesn't love anyone," I muttered, trying to shuffle into the corner where Socks could deflate in peace. Just then, I heard a familiar voice float down the corridor. "Hello, Socks. Back again, are we?" It was Emma, the vet. She's the kind of person you want nearby when your pet is poorly. Calm, kind, and not at all fazed by cats who hiss like snakes or dogs that try to lick your face while she's explaining the importance of flea treatments. Socks let out a low growl, which I'm fairly sure was cat for yes, unfortunately. We were called straight in. The exam room was bright, clean, and smelled faintly of disinfectant and fur. I gently lifted Socks out of the carrier and placed him on the metal table, which he immediately tried to slide off. Emma gave him a friendly scratch behind the ears. "All right, let's see what's going on with you today." Socks looked at me with wide eyes. He knew the drill. First came the weigh-in. 5.1 kilograms. Still holding steady, but a little lighter than usual. Then the poking and prodding. Feeling the belly, checking his heartbeat. Then the worst part, the thermometer. Socks let out a noise I didn't know he could make. Part hiss, part yowl, part long-suffering sigh. "Sorry, mate," Emma said, not sounding sorry at all. "Not my favourite part either." Next came the gum check, then a look into his throat, and a general sense of, from Emma as she moved around him. "I can't say for sure what it is," she said finally. "It could be a virus or something bacterial. It might be nothing serious, but with how quickly he's gone downhill, I feel better running some tests." I nodded slowly, even though I already knew where this was heading. "He'll need to stay in," she continued. "Just for the night. We'll do some bloods, maybe an ultrasound, monitor him closely. We'll make sure he's comfortable." And then came the bit I'd been dreading. "What's the cost, roughly?" I asked, doing my best to sound casual, like I hadn't just been stressed about spending £5 on a bus ticket while proudly handling a cat carrier held together with zip ties. "Well, it depends," Emma said gently. "It could be anywhere from £500 to £1,000 to start with. If he needs treatment beyond that, it could go up." My hands suddenly felt clammy, my chest tightened. "Will the insurance cover it?" She gave a small shrug. "We can't promise, but I think so." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. I looked down at Socks. He had gone quiet again, his face resting gently against my arm. His eyes were half closed, his ears twitching slightly at the strange smells of the room. He looked tired, resigned, like he knew this was all necessary, but he still wished it wasn't. And then something inside me cracked. A lump rose in my throat. My vision blurred for a second. I blinked fast and cleared my throat. "You'll be okay, baby," I whispered, bending down to kiss the top of his furry head. "I'll come back soon. Be brave." He gave a tiny meow, soft and sad. I handed him over and watched as the nurse gently placed him into a warmer, quieter holding area ready for sedation. And then I left. I clenched my jaw and pressed my mouth against my fist to prevent the tears from falling. I walked out of the vet's with an empty carrier swinging in my hand, a heavy heart, and the quiet ache of leaving someone you love behind, even if it's only for one night. But it was the right thing to do. I knew that. Still, it didn't stop me from turning back for one last look. And that brings us to the end of today's episode. I do hope you found it useful. Until next time, take very good care and goodbye.